A very good evening, a warm welcome to another special edition of Dan Really Likes Wine in partnership with Standard Bank and Chenin Blanc Association of South Africa as we celebrate the 10 wines, 8 winemakers in total, because 2 of them are extra good, who made it into this year's top 10 of the Chenin Blanc Challenge. 10 great Chenins who you might remember if you watched the announcement here on Dan Really Likes Wine with Tanashi Nyomaduga, the former test kitchen sommelier who was part of the judging panel, made up for an eclectic selection of Chenin Blanc. Chenins that range from 60, 70 rand a bottle right through to north of 500 rand a bottle, and Chenins that differed greatly in style as well. And that says to me what I think many of you will probably know about Chenin Blanc already, that there are a few grapes quite as versatile as Chenin Blanc. And while there are a lot of South African grapes that are getting very different treatment, very different expressions from different winemakers and different parts of winemaking South Africa, I think it's Chenin that really is as good as any in terms of giving the people who are making the wine so much scope to play around and to find a style that they find best expresses both the terroir of those grapes, but also the winemaking leanings of the person in question. And so we've had a few people we've chatted to already. A little earlier this week, we spoke to the 2 Henrys, one from Badsberg and one from Mulderbosch, and that's very important, as you'll discover shortly. And we also chatted to Dani, the small barrel-like champion at Dani State at Kaapstad, and had a run through their particular Chenins. Today we head to 2 more wine estates, and they're quite different spots. One of them is a place where they insist on playing music to the grapes, believing firmly that this shall make them dance into the bottle and produce even greater wine. That is DeMorgenzon. And the other is the empire that is Spier. There's not much you can't do at Spier. It's a vast, sprawling property, and yet despite its scale, they still managed to make a fabulous selection of wine that don't lose out at all for the amount of stuff that they do, let alone wine that they make. And it's one of my favorite places to visit. I'm sure many of you have had picnics at Spier, listened to music at Spier, stayed over there. I remember finishing the Cape Epic there a couple of times many, many years ago and having dinners at Moyo. So 2 more great Stellenbosch wine estates, and we welcome the estates. We also welcome the 2 guests with him. One is a man who's made wine all over the place and dotted around a few different parts of South Africa, but now finds himself at DeMorgenzon. And the other is part of the team at Spier. So it's a very good evening. Adam Mason from DeMorgenzon, Jacques Erasmus from Spier. Welcome, guys. Great to have you along.
Thank you, Dan.
Let's kick off with you, Adam, because you've got a particularly interesting story with regards to this year's top 10. Because although we haven't seen you yet in our conversations with the Chenin Blanc Association and the Standard Bank Top 10, we have tasted your wine, because a wine that you made has made it in the top 10, even though you have bid that estate farewell since.
Yeah, Dan, that was obviously on the picture on the screen now. The Block S from Mulderbosch, the single vineyard Chenin Blanc from Sonop, if I'm not mistaken, that was it. And yeah, it's great to see that came through well in the Chenin Blanc awards. It was very exciting to be a part of that project, where we isolated 3 different parcels of old vine, Chenin Blanc. There were some old bush vines, some very interesting Massal selection sites, and 3 very, very different sites, different soils, different locations, and 3 obviously very different expressions of Chenin Blanc. So it was great to see that do well in the awards. And actually, as I look out of my office window, I can basically see the top of the Mulderbosch vineyards from here. So whilst I'm still not there, I'm not far away. I kind of haven't rolled too far away from Mulderbosch. I'm still in the Stellenbosch Kloof area. I feel very comfortable being here because I think I've got really quite a good familiarity and understanding of how Chenin behaves in this area.
It's been an interesting journey to where you find yourself now, because you studied wine in Stellenbosch, you spent time working abroad, a lot of time at Klein Constantia, then to Mulderbosch. But you could have been at DeMorgenzon a little earlier, because there was an opening. I think you'd met up with Wendy and Hilton, and then in the end, Carl van der Merwe moved in instead. But he's now headed off, I think, to America, if I'm not mistaken. So you finally got your way into DeMorgenzon.
Yeah, look, I guess Wendy doesn't make mistakes very often, but she finally sort of had to concede that maybe she did make a mistake 10 years ago. No, I'm only joking. Of course she didn't. I mean, Carl was absolutely the right man for the job, and I've been we're all very fortunate to have had Carl's prepare the way and to leave an amazing legacy at DeMorgenzon. He very much was responsible for putting DeMorgenzon on the map. Him and Wendy made a formidable team. And when I arrived here and went through the whole process of onboarding, I was really relieved to see the depth and the kind of just the thorough kind of nature, the way everything had been prepared. And there's not a lot for me to do other than just to improve on what's been done already by Carl and Wendy. So that makes my job here a lot easier.
Well, we'll see in a moment what you have to improve upon when we sample the DeMorgenzon Chenin. Let's head over to Jacques. Before we welcome in Jacques, a quick hello to Karen Harwinkels from Standard Bank. Karen, a very warm welcome. And once again, a big thank you to you and Standard Bank for getting behind this celebration of Chenin Blanc, which is such a wonderful South African story. And Jacques, it's a story that you have a particular appreciation for, because you were over at the Chenin Blanc Forum over in France. You got to see the world of Chenin. You got to explore some great Chenin Blanc sites in France. How much of an understanding did that give you of where South African Chenin Blanc sits on a global scale, and hopefully how well we're doing with our Chenin Blanc?
Yeah, I was under the impression our Chenin Blanc is very good, better than the lower Chenins, but I was surprised with the good quality of wines that they have there. But we can stand up, and South Africa is unique. We can't copy them, and they can't copy us. We've got the sunshine and the good soils, and our Chenin Blanc is all over the South Africa, in every area. I must say, very good. So I'm very proud to be a winemaker of Chenin Blanc in South Africa.
I think we get quite proud of our own Chenin Blanc at the moment. It's one of the great South African successes, either on its own or leading white blends when we see it internationally. And we see a lot of wine critics responding extremely positively to South African Chenin and to Chenin blends. When you were at the forum in France, when you were engaging with winemakers, with wine people from around the world, what was their sense of South African Chenin Blanc?
Look, they live in their own small world, I think. But I must say, I think they surprise what we do and how much effort we put into this cultivar. And I think we're far advanced with what we know about Chenin, about our vineyards and where we're going with the cultivar than they are at the moment.
There's a lot of comparison that goes on, I think, with wine anywhere in the world with France. It's seen by most people as the benchmark, as the spiritual home of wine. But I get the sense more and more in South Africa, we're perhaps no longer talking so much about the Hemelanada being a little Burgundy, but the Hemelanada making great wine in its own right. Similarly, the Bordeaux blends of Stellenbosch actually being great Stellenbosch blends in their own right. Are we at a space now where South African Chenin Blanc stands on its own 2 feet, where it tells its own story, where it doesn't need to have to sit alongside a Loire Chenin to try and gain some sort of currency or respect?
Yeah, no, it's I think we're unique. You can see in every area, in the top 10 now, there's not one specific area that make great Chenin Blancs, and the winemakers put a lot of effort in the cellar. And for me, Chenin is so. I think that's by far our biggest cultivar, and we put a lot of effort behind the cultivar. In doesn't matter if it's a entry bottle of wine or your top wooded Chenin Blanc, like the 21 Gables. Yeah, from the vineyard to the cellar, we do a lot of effort.
Well, let's focus in from a general Chenin conversation to a more specific one. Adam, the wine at DeMorgenzon, you know the broader area particularly well, but the DeMorgenzon story is quite unique. I have this vision of hippie-ish style types with long hair sitting on pianos, busy playing the Baroque music as you wait for the grapes to grow and to flourish. It is a really cool story. Is it simply just a bit of fun, or do you think it genuinely has an impact on what you produce at DeMorgenzon?
You know, it's a great question, Dan, because if you think about, well, look, there's certainly been a lot of research done on the benefits of music to plants, and I think it's possibly a little esoteric on the one level, but on the kind of purely sort of fundamental sound wave, sort of physical nature of it, there's definitely some stimulation that I think happens within the vascular tissue of the plants. But I was actually saying to Hilton Applebaum, and it was really Hilton's brainchild to pipe the music into the cellar and to pipe it into the vineyards. And I said to him the other day, you know, all of this research has been done on the effect that it has on plants, but you know, we don't really talk about the effect that it has on people within this environment. And I think that's really important too, because you know, if you walk out into the vineyards right now, there's this beautiful sort of early classic and Baroque music playing, and it's wonderful. You know, as a person working in the vineyards, to be able to just have that in the background. I mean, whether you're really cognizant of it and you can understand it and you're really passionate about it, or whether it's just something in the background subliminally kind of sort of enhancing your day, I think there's a clear benefit to having music in these surrounds. So yeah, I think there's various levels at which you can kind of engage with the story.
Well, I'll see if I can get a hint of music to the palate when I taste your Chenin in just a second.
Harmony, Dan, you're talking harmony, melody, balance. These are all kind of terms that apply equally to music and to wine.
Indeed they do. Indeed they do.
Don't forget the humble baton.
Jacques, your space a little different. I'm not sure I've heard classical music playing out to the grapes, but I have heard plenty of noise because it's a really busy space you've got, and Spier has been one of the huge success stories in the South African wine hospitality trade. You've got so much that happens there. You've also got a really big operation. You've got France overseeing things. You've got a team. How difficult is it when you're making so much wine, when you've got such a big property, to ensure that you're continually making the kind of wine, the kind of quality of wine that allows you to get into the Standard Bank Chenin Blanc top 10?
Yeah, it all starts in the vineyard. So we're fortunate with good grapes. And then we have an excellent team. It's not the winemaker alone and the viticulturist. It's the team. As Adam said, we're a happy team. Everybody is focused. My team is with me for the last, I think, 6-7 years. They didn't change. So it's important that the farmers engage, the cellar workers engage, and then it comes from themselves. It's then easy to work and to make quality wines. We're a big operation, but attention to detail is very important to us. Doesn't matter if it's the bulk wine that we produce or the top level. Everything is important for us.
And I get the sense that you set yourself pretty high standards. So it's not just a waiting public that you've got to answer to, or wine critics or competition judges, but primarily it's yourselves wanting to ensure that you keep improving and you keep matching your standards every year.
Yeah, accolades is very important. It is nice to get, but it's more important that people enjoy your wine. And the Chenin Blanc, it's nice for me to see that this wine specifically do well in all the competitions. It's not that it do well in certain competitions. And yeah, it's the first time that we're in the top 10. We just missed 2019. So yeah, it speaks for itself, I think.
Back with a bang in 2020. All right, let's have a first crack at the wine because it's looking at me and it's screaming out to be sampled. Adam, the DeMorgenzon, this one would have been made by Carl. We've tasted yours the other day in the company of Henry, so we're now tasting Carl's in the company of you. Give us an introduction to this wine and how it differs from the style of Chenin that Mulderbosch got into the top 10.
Okay, well, look, Obviously, this is still a wine that's fairly new to me, Dan. So I would prefer to sidestep that question a little bit. I mean, I can tell you quickly what I think of the wine. I mean, if I smell it, I just get really nuanced flavors. There's a very beautiful balance of oak, which is definitely there, but it's such a secondary character to this wine. Primarily, I've got some lovely sort of fresh citrus notes. There's a little bit of kind of summer sort of floral. If I think about a hay field that's just been cut in summertime, and it's after a day or two, it's baked in the sun, and you get those wonderful kind of aromatic oils that start to volatilize, and you kind of walk through a hay field. You get those beautiful kind of summery smells. That's what I pick up on the nose. But on the palate, it's got the most beautiful texture. It's got wonderful acidity, and really importantly, it's got this incredible length. Once you've had a sip and you swallow it, which I'll do as soon as I finish speaking, it's got this most amazing kind of finish, and that's really, really important when it comes to quality, in my opinion.
How then, having tasted this, and it's both a lovely wine in itself, but one that I feel is still fairly early on in its story. It's got the balance and the potential to go many years beyond this. How does that frame how you go forward as a winemaker? Do you say, right, well, this is clearly the style that works for DeMorgenzon, I've got to keep going in this style? Or do you say, well, hang on, no, I'm Adam Mason, I want to put a little bit of my own signature on this going forward?
Okay, so I think that is the eternal kind of winemaker question. When a new person comes into an existing established stable, what do they do with the wines? And I've stepped into the shoes of someone like Ross Gower at Klein Constantia, Mike Dobrovic, and to a lesser degree Richard Kershaw at Milderbos, and of course Carl van der Merwe now at DeMorgenzon. And I have always tried to maintain the house style that was established by my predecessor. At the same time, I've always believed that you can improve things every single vintage. With every single vintage, I gain knowledge of the particular sites with which we were growing the grapes, and every single site has its quirks. Picking a vineyard, at 23.5 Belling or 22 Belling, the same vineyard is going to give you completely different results, and one might be better than the other for that given site. So that's the kind of stuff that I will be conscious of going into 2021. I'm certainly not coming here to stamp Adam Mason on DeMorgenzon, but what I would like to achieve in my own space is a great understanding of the essence of DeMorgenzon, and in that process, I think the ultimate winner is the public or the consumer, because they get to experience a deeper, more profound version of DeMorgenzon. And I hope that the same will take place when I leave one day, that the next person will continue to build on that. And I think, Jacques mentioned the French, and they live in their own world. But I think once you're in that world, their world is a different world to ours, and they have a different kind of view on how they experience the wine. They have a small world within a community, but they have a lot of depth within that community. And I think you also spoke about it now with South Africa, not having to reference Burgundy or the Loire. A great Stellenbosch blend is a great Stellenbosch blend in its own right, and that for me is the challenge: is for us to make great Chenin Blanc in Stellenbosch. And we're in Stellenbosch Kloof. Jacques is in a slightly different part of Stellenbosch, but we both are in Stellenbosch, and we both have express different elements of Stellenbosch. And for me, that's the exciting thing, is that there's a clear reference to a regional identity. And Chenin, of course, is the variety that's best placed to do it, given the percentage of old vines in this country, and given the highest percentage of all vines planted in South Africa being Chenin Blanc. So that's my answer. That's the short answer.
Fabulous answer it is, full of information and full of references to this great Chenin Blanc story. And if we look at this story, Jacques, I think all of our winemakers, many of our wine drinkers will know there was a long stretch where Chenin Blanc was the wine that was guaranteed to give you a 4-day headache, but there wasn't much going to it more than that. And in the last decade, probably kicking off with Ken Forrester, but going from there, Shannon's picked up and fallen into a whole new space. How rewarding is it for you as a winemaker to be able to address Chenin Blanc on these terms? You can now make it into something that's a premium wine instead of the space of years gone by when it was fairly cheap and nasty and you dished it out by the pint.
Yeah, we in 2010, I think we changed to the 21 Gables when we launched this wine. So then the platform was open and we had a different idea about Chenin, not that concentrated, more fruit and elegant with less oak. And it worked for us. You can see the sales, it's improved, and people are paying for the wine much easier. It's not that they're afraid to buy a more expensive Chenin, and it's just to be consistent and I think the winemakers figure out a style that suits the South African market and also the world market. The wine suits the public taste, I think.
You are 10 years in, so you've had plenty of experience making it, and that has me anticipating this wine greatly. But before we do that, I'm just having a look at the bottle, and you mentioned the name, 21 Gables. For me, one of the great parts of the South African wine story as a whole is the narrative behind so many of the labels. What does the 21 Gables refer to, Jacques?
Yeah, it's the Spier of 21 Gables of the old Dutch Gables on the farm. I think it's the only farm with that much old heritage Gables on the farm. So that's where the name comes from. And yeah, it's nice to people know the wine. It's 21 Gables. They recognize the wine on the shelf. That's more important for me.
They certainly do. They recognize the label, but I think they've also come to recognize the wine inside it because, as you mentioned, you've been in this top 10 with Standard Bank 5 times now, which is a great accolade. Introduce me to your wine, if you will, Jacques. Tell me a little bit about it and tell me what has prompted the style of wine that I find in my glass today.
Yeah, this wine spent 14 months in barrels, but we use different sizes. It's from 300 liters to 400, 500 liters, and then we also used 2,500 watts. And the fourth little bit longer in the barrel just make the wine, it's just that less oak and better mouthfeel. And then the wine is, the grapes come from the Durbanville area. It's a single vineyard, and this 2019 is the first year that it certifies a heritage vineyard. So we're very proud of that. So we try to make a wine with less oak, but nice fruit, well mouthfeel. On this nose is citrus, got a lot of white peats, quince, and then a little bit of tropical fruit afterwards, and then the oak just support this fruit. And then the palate is very good fruit again. And then I got a smoothness in the palate with a long finish and a long ends.
It's a slightly different style to the DeMorgenzon, but they both have in common the fact that they've got that lovely length, they've got that big mouthfeel to them. There's that lovely rich seam that runs through the wine, and it completes a wine that I'm sure you're rightly very proud of, Jacques. Not dissimilar question to the one that I asked Adam, but I'll frame it slightly differently. For people who wonder about how wine is made, and we're talking Chenin in particular here, how much of it is the terroir and the grapes dictating to you, this is how this Chenin Blanc is going to turn out, and how much of it is you saying, this is what I'd like, and so this is how I can influence the process?
Listen, it's not easy. Every year is different. With that drought the last few years, but again, effort in the vineyard is the starting point. If you don't have good grapes, you can't make good wine. But it's not only that, it's the planning around getting the grapes in. We harvest this specific vineyards 4 or 5 times, only go in and pick the right bunches. And then we make 4 or 5 different styles of wine, also different oak treatments. And then we taste the barrels over and over and eliminate always the barrels that doesn't make the cut. So it's not just the vineyards; it's dedicated work in the cellar also, and the team knows what to do, and the cellar is geared to handle a wine like this.
It's a process I'm still fascinated by. I've been drinking wine, writing about wine, talking about wine for 20 years now, and I learn something every time I talk about wine. And I'm still not entirely sure on exactly how it all works, but I do know what ends up in my glass is very welcome. It's also welcome in the glass of Reginald Popclair, who's watching the show up in Cheetah Plains and the Sabi Sand, sending in a comment, watching us on Facebook. Good evening, all. I really can't explain my love of Chenin and Cape Terroir. Personally, I think it's a fusion, 1655, a long time ago, but every moment a Cape winemaker produces a vintage for a DeMorgenzon or a Mulderbosch, other great estates. My mind is stuck on the phrase "distien." Well done, guys. And that kind of response, Adam, whether it is somebody sending in a message like this, watching the show on Facebook, whether you get something on social media, whether it's an accolade from the Standard Bank 2020 Chenin Blanc top 10, those are, I know you don't make the wine for that reason, but it is a really nice endorsement that what you're doing is right, and that you're reaching people and you're getting the kind of response that you would hope to get from the wine you're putting so much time and effort into.
100%, Dan. And what I loved about that comment that you just read now is that distien, that is such a South African quip. And when wine transcends just sort of pure hedonistic kind of pursuits and becomes woven into the fabric of our language, I think it really does improve the quality of our lives on a cultural level. And that for me is the great joy of producing wine, is that we take an agricultural product, and Jacques has mentioned it several times, the amount of effort that goes into growing grapes, the number of times that they go through that vineyard and pick it at different stages to get to the final kind of product. That kind of primary agricultural endeavor ultimately translates into something very kind of significant on a cultural level. Isn't that a wonderful thing? I mean, we're drinking labor, we're drinking centuries of heritage, and we can distill it into a little phrase, distien. And it gives the guy up in the north of the country great pleasure with each kind of passing vintage. The rewards are everywhere. If you love what you do and you put great sort of energy and love into your product, you reap it every time you have a personal kind of interaction with someone who loves your product. That for me is the greatest possible reward. It's not exactly the kind of the gold medal or the banner that stands on the bottle. It's the customer who's driven an extra mile or kind of is really kind of excited at your next release and makes a special effort to reach out to you to come and grab a bottle or to come and sort of taste it. That's the ultimate reward, in my opinion.
It is a terrific endorsement. I would like to offer one other area of endorsement that I think probably means a lot to you guys, and that's the endorsement of your peers. So Adam, if I can ask you to kick off the wine of Jacques. I'm sure you've had the occasional bottle of Spier. What do you make of the wine of Jacques Erasmus, of Spier, and possibly the Chenin, if you have had a crack at it?
Well, look, just a disclosure first up is, both being kind of gingers, I'm obviously predisposed to like Jacques' wine more than like a brunette or a blonde-haired winemaker. Having said that, I've always been a fan of what Spier has done. I was a waiter there as a student. I worked at the Spier Cafe and Jonkershuis for all my days as a winemaking student at Stellenbosch. So I've got very fond memories of Spier. And, what I love about their wines is it doesn't matter whether it's the entry level, 1692 or the 21 Gables. There's an essence of purity. The fruit purity in Spier's Chenin Blancs specifically is something that I recognize consistently in all of those wines. And that's something I expect. As a consumer, the promise that Spier makes to me is that they're going to deliver a really pure fruit and succulence and a beautiful kind of balanced wine. And if I don't get that from Spier, then I'm going to be disappointed.
Well, I don't think you will be disappointed, certainly based on the quality of this particular Chenin. Jacques, have you tried any of Adam's wine? Had you heard of him before today? Is his wine remotely drinkable? What are your thoughts on Mr. Mason?
think you must come and work for Spier. It sounds like that. Yeah. I follow Adam's wine. I know it's not that he make only good Chenins. He's good in all cultivars. I think he's a good winemaker with a good track record. And I'm very fond of Mildersbos wines. It's like, again, he wants a specific Chenins. It's clean. This guy know how to make wine. It shows in the wine, the purity of the wine, as he spoke about.
All right, the Mutual Enjoyment Association, and rightly so. Jacques, a big part of this entire award, this top 10, is the money that comes your way, and it's not money to head off and go on holiday in the Maldives or buy yourself a new motorbike. It's money that goes to a really, really important space. 25,000 rand, thanks to Standard Bank, came to Spier because of your top 10 finish, and that goes to a project, to a charity, to a community space of your choice. What did you guys decide to use with the money?
This year we decided something we thought totally out of the box. So our Ciala team is still a young team, and they wanted to start a cycling team, or for social cycling team. So we decided to sponsor the money for the cycling team as a team building thing this year. It's difficult times, and I think we can bring people closer to each other apart from work by this. This is the first year we do something like that, and it's new. And I think, I'm very grateful for Standard Bank to give us the money for that.
It's probably my favorite part of this entire celebration of Chenin, is this element and the way that the money allows communities to connect through wine. And yours is another terrific example. Adam, what have you decided to do with DeMorgenzon with your 25,000 rand?
Dan, I just got to first of all obviously say extend our kind of gratitude to Standard Bank for this exceptionally generous prize money. The team at DeMorgenzon, we've won it now 6 years in a row, and they've almost come to expect this kind of accolade every year, and it's a highlight of their year. So they were really looking forward to the results this year, and they weren't disappointed. Last year we spent the money on eye tests. So everybody on the farm got an eye test. Their eyes tested, and they either got prescription glasses, or if the eyes are still good, they got sunglasses. And this year we kind of put the request out to everybody, and there was a lot. I think it was kind of a wet and cold winter, and the message went out at a time when I think people were feeling the cold, and everybody requested kind of a nice heavy like a warm overcoat. So we're going to get overcoats, and we're also going to get wide-brimmed hats for people who spend long hours out in the sun, so working in the vineyard. So we're going to have overcoats and hats for everybody on the farm who works in the vineyard and in the cellar and the kind of the production team. They are going to reap the benefit of this award.
That's fantastic. I love the way this money goes back into the communities and improves people, and all that comes from just simply making some brilliant Chenin Blanc. It's not really that hard at all, is it? It's certainly not hard drinking it, and you guys have both given me a lovely Chenin that's well deserving of your top 10 status. And as we look to wrap up and we send you off into the weekend, and it'll be a weekend of lots of wine and loads of braais, because I think that's all winemakers ever do all weekend. Jacques, I know you mentioned that you don't make the wine for the awards, and I know that's very much the case. You're not just saying that, but it is nice to get them, of course. But if we look slightly more broadly at this space, Standard Bank not just allowing the Chenin Blanc Association to recognize the 10 best Chenins from the year, but also just spreading that Chenin Blanc story, and by extension, spreading the South African wine story around the world. I think that is such an important part of this whole process.
Yes, it's amazing what Standard Bank do for us, and Ken Forrester too. Yeah, that puts the wine on the map, and it helps sales. It's important to make Chenin Blanc, and to make it that we're proud of it, and we're grateful for Standard Bank to doing that.
Oh, good on you. Jacques, and thank you for that vote of thanks. And Adam, similarly, there's never been a time, I think, around the world when the wine-producing nations are under more pressure. We've got economies in a difficult position. We've got lots and lots of wine out there needing to find good homes. We've got to find ways to differentiate, to celebrate what we do particularly well. And Chenin Blanc, with the support of INA and their association and Standard Bank, this just allows us to hopefully get ahead in that race with everybody else.
Yeah, I think it's the most active varietal association in South Africa. It's got the most number of members, and I think what Ken and Ina have done in collaboration with Standard Bank is, as you say, is to put us on the map globally. We really are putting the word out there that South Africa has kind of real connection with Chenin, and that they're doing a fantastic job. So it's good to be a part of all of the action, and it's good to be able to pull our weight and to kind of roll up our sleeves and to get stuck in. And thank you, Dan, to you as well for everything that you've done for promoting Chenin and your kind of efforts. It's been great.
Mine is merely a most elaborate ruse to allow me to drink lots of wonderful South African wine, Adam. But thank you nonetheless. I'm going to ask you guys one final question before I bid you farewell. Just before that, I see a couple of comments coming in. Wines of South Africa, fabulous, responding to your stories of where your money is going. And Melissa Sutherland, I think this was in response to yours, Adam. Great idea. So lovely to see the endorsements of what you guys have done with your 25,000 Rand. Adam, Jacques, both winemakers extraordinaire, but also lovers of the good life in general. If I am drinking this DeMorgenzon Chenin on my Friday night, and I'm thinking, what should I be having for dinner with it? This is such a versatile wine. I was talking to Neil from Nederburg last night, and we were conjuring up all sorts of pairings we could have with Chenin at large. With this one, what's your preferred pick, Adam?
It's a tough question, really. It is the big question, because Chenin is so versatile. But I'll tell you what I'll be having it with tonight. I'll be having it with my wife and my 3 daughters with pizzas, because it's Pizza Friday. So we're going to have some goat's milk cheese, some basil, and some fresh tomatoes on home-baked pizzas. That's what we're going to be having this with.
And if you look on screen now, that is Adam's home address. You're all welcome to join him. He'd love to be down for pizza. But if you don't feel like that, I can't think why not, because it sounds sensational. Maybe there's an alternative option at Chateau Jacques. Jacques, with my Spier 21 Gables, Chenin, what's for dinner?
I had pizza this afternoon with my son for his big good report. So I will have a pork belly tonight with this open bottle of wine. And then any spicy food also work. Like Cape Malay pickle fish or a boertie or traditional Cape foods. Spiciness works well with this Chenin for me personally.
I think you've hit on both of the spaces, and I love either the richness, that little bit of fat on the pork belly, and the Chenin cutting through the spice it's competing with on something like a curry. Great selection, guys, but even more so, great selection of wine, great choice of community engagements to partner up with and to spend your money on. So well done on that. And thank you both for delivering 2 terrific Chenin Blancs, for consistently delivering great South African wine across the board, and for being part of Dan Really Likes Wine and the Chenin Blanc Association celebration of the Standard Bank Top 10. So Adam, Jacques, thank you both very much, and have a fabulous, fabulous weekend.
Thank you.
Cheers. Cheers, Jacques.
Enjoy the weekend. Adam, see you.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
There we go. As Adam sets off to have his goat's milk and fresh tomato and fresh basil pizza with his Chenin, and Jacques goes to tear into a nice pork belly with his, I can only emphasize the words of Ina Smith, who runs the Chenin Blanc Association and does so with passion and excellence in equal measure. And that was congratulations again to Adam and Jacques. Well done. And thanks again to a wonderful sponsor and partner in Standard Bank. And thank you too to you, Ina. You really do a fabulous job along with your uncle Ken Forrester. So that does it for today. That does it for this week on Dan Really Likes Wine. It's been an enormously busy week, but it's been hugely rewarding because, excuse me, not only have I got to drink some terrific wine as I get to do so often, but also share some terrific stories and shine a little light into what are occasionally somewhat dark times here in South Africa and beyond. So what do we have to look forward to next week? Well, next Friday, we've got more Chenin Blanc. If I'm not mistaken, it's 2 different Chenins from Alvy's Drift, plus a Chenin from Durbanville Hills. That will be next Friday. But before then, live tastings on Monday and Thursday. And how are these for a pair of live tastings? On Monday, I will be with... yes, I'll be with Elgin Ridge and Luddite virtually, tasting not just their wines, a lovely Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc from Elgin Ridge, and the famous Luddite Shiraz, plus their crown-capped white, the Saboteur, but also trying That's right, It's the name of the Cabernet Franc they made together. It costs an absolute fortune. Is it remotely worth it? Well, we'll find out on Monday night. And then on Thursday, I will be at Marble Restaurant in the company of Mike Radcliffe, as well as Greg Sherwood chipping in from London as we sample the brand new vintage of the C series from Villafonte. And also be down in the Cape next week on Wednesday, joining Stuart Buerter and co-hosting the launch of the new range from Takara. So lots of wine to look forward to, but for now, have a fabulous weekend. Drink some Chenin over the weekend. Raise a glass to our great winemakers, to a great wine sponsor in Standard Bank, and to Ina and her fabulous team from Chenin Blanc Association of South Africa. Have a lovely weekend. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Thanks for drinking South African wine. I'll see you Monday evening. Cheers. Goodbye.